We interrupt your program to bring you this important podcast. How to 911.
Can you put me out of service on a podcast, please?
This is How to 911, and I'm Sami.
I'm Erica.
And we're going to talk to you a little bit more about, last episode we talked about the fire police side of things and questions, like why we ask the questions that we do. I feel like I just did an eye roll. Why we ask the questions.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we have this on video.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. She's helped us a lot with these maths that we've had to do. Anyways, so this time we're going to give you the medical side of our questioning. Our medical side, we don't have as much open room when it comes to what we ask, which I'm okay with, because when it comes to medical situations, I know nothing about. I'm not a doctor. That's all I'm going to say.
And we're not medically trained.
Right.
So,
I mean, we're trained in like certain life-saving aspects, like we're CPR trained.
But we didn't go to any kind of
EMT
medical school. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thankful that we have our set questions, because otherwise I'd probably just be like, oh, ambulance is coming. And you'd be like, but what do I do? They're bleeding out. So I think it's a really helpful tool. And it makes me feel a little bit less stressed when something serious is happening.
Yes.
Yes. So if you have called an ambulance more than once and you're in our jurisdiction or within the county, you kind of hear the same questions, so you might be prepared for what we are going to be asking. So, just be patient with us if you're a little annoyed that we have to ask the same questions every single time. We have to ask that for a reason, and we're going to explain why. First thing is first. Goes back to episode 1. Goes back to the ground roots of everything. You call 911, we have to get your address of where this is happening at. So that's our first question, always, no matter what. And especially for medical stuff, it's even more imperative that you repeat that. Because if you're in a medical emergency, the last thing that I want is to send them to the wrong house.
Right.
That would upset me, and I'm sure it would upset the responders, because that's all that they want to do is come to your house and help you. Especially if it's like on one side of the town to the next side. We dispatch a certain ambulance and fire truck depending on the situation, and it's not in their jurisdiction, so it's going to be in a different ambulance and fire truck, so then we have to get them re-going or whatever it is. If it's just down the house, yes, we can redirect the same ambulance, but depending on where it is in town, we might have to send out a whole new crew if we didn't hear your address correctly.
Right.
Which isn't fun for anybody involved.
And that's why we do the address twice, because we make sure we hear it right. And sometimes people have just moved. They forget where they are, and they say, I'm at 123 West 10th, and then we're like, okay, repeat it. And they're like, I was at 444 East 2nd.
Yeah.
Whatever the new address is. So it'll make them listen to it themselves, say it again as well.
Right. And again, going back to our roots, just make sure that you're aware of your address. If you don't know how, or if there's children in the house, just make sure they're aware of those things, because we've had many children callers that have saved lives, and it's very important that even if they can't express to us what's happening, if we get an address, we'll get somebody there. Second question goes again back to our roots. What's the phone number that you're calling from? Again, a lot of medicals that we get, like up in like the canyon, like super far out, like we need a callback number just in case, because sometimes those phone numbers come back as disconnected depending on the service that they have.
Sometimes people will get transferred on
yes.
admin lines, and so if we see that it's transferred from the sheriff's office, we want to make sure we have your phone number, not the sheriff's office phone number. And we have big, hospital systems here. So UC Health, Banner. If they have switchboards. So if someone from a UC Health doctor's office is calling and it gets routed through their call center, Fort Collins has to transfer them to us, and then it looks like they're calling from Fort Collins. So we want to make sure we have your address, phone number. But we also want to make sure you have phone number and address.
So the two simple things that we always ask, and then the third simple thing that we always ask is, we're going to go through this again. This third simple thing that we always say in request of you is tell us exactly what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say tell me. I'm not going to say tell us. Unless some voices in my head tell us exactly tell me exactly what's happening. Or tell me exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of flip between the two depending on what I hear that's going on.
Right. Or if they've already kind of said it, and so I have a general idea, but I'm like, tell me exactly.
Yeah. Like, some people will say, I just found him on the ground, or he's bleeding out. Okay, well, tell me exactly what happened, because I need to know if there's scene safety. Do I need to send police? A lot of our medical cards, nature codes, whatever you want to call them, a lot of them are really dependent on mechanism of injury.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has fallen and they're on the ground, we want to know how. I'm not going to go into that quite yet,
right.
But it's important for us to know if it's a fall versus if somebody.
You fainted, you tripped, you fell off a ladder, someone punched you in the face.
Yeah, so if you just tell me they're on the ground, we're going to dig a little bit more. If you don't give us a specific, like, they're vomiting and I need help.
Right.
I'm probably still going to be like, tell me exactly what happened, because vomiting can still be one of those.
Right.
Like, what happened. But.
Or they're having a seizure.
Oh, there you go.
They're having a stroke. Yeah.
Yes, much.
I have a headache.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm going to say all of them now. I keep testing. And your nature codes are chief complaints.
Thank you.
Yes.
Erica already, I'm sure you guys can see in the video, has written and edited my script, because I was just like writing this, and I was like, I mashed two things together that are two completely separate things.
You got it figured out.
Oh, thank goodness.
It's all there.
So, before we get into the chief complaints, because there's a lot of them.
There's 33 that we use.
33 ways that we can go with what you tell us as to our line of questioning.
Right.
I want to go into, just because I'm thinking along the lines of how the screen works, after we ask those 3 questions, and then we have other follow-up questions that we ask depending on the situation. These are always going to be the same, with like very few, what's the word I'm looking for?
Deviations.
Circumstances. Such as?
Yes.
In which we wouldn't ask these questions.
Right.
Right.
Unless the answers are already obvious.
Which is also correct.
Yes. So if you call in and say, my 64-year-old father tripped and fell, he is now talking to me on the ground, asking for some water.
Yeah.
I have a lot of the questions that we'll talk about answered.
I literally have all of them.
Right. We're good.
So the great thing about this is that I'm pretty sure I don't need to look at a piece of paper. So tell me exactly what happened. Do you need to look? Should we look at everything?
If you, to me, it's, I could say it, I could spout it off right now, but do you want to look at it?
Yeah, let's look at it. Wow, I'm going to edit all of this out.
No, it's so exciting.
Or do we want the big?
Both.
Yeah. I don't like that thing.
That's good. I like it. I wanted this one anyway.
Did you?
Yeah.
This is my honking squeaker.
This is the real thing that we use if our computer system goes down. So we use ProQA as our software, and if this is our hard copy of what we use on the computer.
Yeah. So we had to use this the other day because CAD went down. So
can also make them be a nice little.
It's really fun to just time waster.
It's very tactile, like fidget spinner.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, never mind. So we have. I don't know if I'm allowed to show all of this, but so this is gonna be like kind of what we already talked about, the entry area where it says what's the address, what's the phone number, tell me exactly what happened, and then the next question after that is, are you with the patient now? I usually don't use that because in the tell me exactly what, I don't use that verbatim. Let me preface that, because most of the time when I say tell me exactly what happened, they'll say my father fell, and so I'll say, are you with him now?
Right.
And patient is really if somebody doesn't give me that other
relationship or pronoun for
pronoun for me to fill it in with. Yes. So are you with the patient now? And then depending on the circumstances, next question we may not ask. This is typically usually the same thing every single time, but it says how many people are sick / hurt, usually, unless it's like a car accident or CO, a leak, electrocution, it's usually going to be one person. It's usually obvious.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll just say that depending on the circumstance, everything, like I tell people in training, everything is black and white until you're doing it. And then it can be, so all of these things are, I always ask this unless.
Yeah. So, but most of the time, unless they say, my father and my sister and my brother are all vomiting, I'm going to skip that.
Mm-hmm.
How old is he/she/patient/ whatever the circumstances, how old are they, basically? Most of the time, it's somebody that you know that you're calling in about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like 70% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're calling in because somebody just fell in the parking lot of Walmart. So you don't know how old they are. You can ask them, and that's helpful. But if you don't know, we have a follow-up question that we ask, or a statement says, tell me approximately then, because we at least need to know an age range. Why is age range, wait, let me back up. Why is it important that we ask that you're with the patient? Erica?
I was like, is this like you're going to be like, and then the answer is.
I was going to, but nothing came to my brain, so I was like, nudging.
You're like, and help me out. We want to know because it will help with the lines of questioning and the instructions that we will talk about in a little bit, helping out the patient.
Yeah,
in the future.
That needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then so age is important because of, again, like certain things such as if we do need to start doing CPR or a lot of like heart conditions.
Yep.
It's important to know how old they are because then depending if they're in the age range of certain conditions of whatever the circumstance is, it'll add additional questions for us to ask to verify. Like chest pain's the one that comes to my mind of the age range.
Right,
and pregnancy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the seizure card has, if they're in a age range where you could be pregnant, they'll ask if they are or had been.
Right. Yeah. So it'll just pop up with additional questions, and it's just also important for the responders to know when they're coming up because there's obviously different equipment for a child than there is an adult.
Sure.
So just helpful for everybody all around. The next question that we ask is, are they awake? And we want to know that because a level of consciousness is what tells us how severe the situation may or may not be. Mm-hmm. So that's always important to know. And then the next is, are they breathing? Which is also important because if you're not breathing, you're not okay, and we need to get help even faster. So these questions, it might be a little annoying, especially if it's not a severe situation. If somebody just needs to go to the hospital because they don't feel well or whatever the reason may be, that's totally fine. But we need to ask these questions because what are the chances that they aren't awake and they aren't breathing and you didn't tell us that before? And if we didn't ask these follow-up questions, when would we have figured it out? And then would that have changed the response?
Right.
So,
and I think there's something in here that law or rule or whatever it is, if you don't look for it, you're not going to find out. So if we don't ask it, we don't know.
Right.
We can't assume.
Right. Wouldn't you hate for us to assume that they were awake and breathing and then they weren't and we could have started CPR a lot earlier? Which we'll get into that in a second. But so then after those, it says here 6 questions. I think we gave a couple more because some of them are follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. But with the first 6 basic 6 questions that we asked, then we can go into the specific reason in which why you're calling. Right.
So after those 6 questions called case entry, I should know which chief complaint I'm going to choose. Mm-hmm. And I have 33 options. Not everything's going to be perfectly fit into those 33, but I'll do the best I can.
Yeah. And then there's sometimes where it can fit into more than one.
Yes.
And so then we have to try to figure out in our brains, like, which one's the most severe, which way should I go with it? Like, they're vomiting, they have a headache, their back hurts, and they're having a difficulty breathing. All of those 4 things that are going on, I'm going to choose the breathing card because that's the biggest concern. If the breathing wasn't in there, I probably would do headache.
It's really hard to, I'm not typing it in, so I'm like, back pain. So What happened with this person to have all of this? They're not feeling good.
They're just not feeling good.
Yeah.
It just all of a sudden they came over, saw their dad, and he just wasn't feeling well. He was weak. He had a headache, and he has some back pain, and he has difficulty breathing. And he's on O2. Let me keep making a laundry list.
Difficulty breathing, I think, and then back pain. And if all of that is like, yeah, he's difficulty breathing because that's normal for him, we could go sick person.
Yeah.
But we have the rules of scene safety, trauma, medical. So if he's danger, we go whatever addresses that first. If it's something traumatic, we'd go there, and then we go to medical after that.
Yeah. And the difference between trauma and medical?
Something done to you externally versus something that your body's just doing on your own. So if you're bleeding and I say, why are you bleeding? It's my nose versus I'm bleeding because someone stabbed me. Trauma. Scene safety, trauma, or medical.
Right. Someone stabbed you, so trauma and scene safety.
Right.
Yeah. Hey guys, Sami here. I hate to do this again, but we are separating this episode into 2 parts just because of the length it is. It's kind of hard to explain, but we're separating it into 2 parts, and this is the part where it makes the most sense to split it. So I'm sorry it's a little bit shorter, but it will all make sense all together. Because of that, we will be choosing to put the whole video up at once, which will be on March 1st. So in another month when the other part releases. I'm so sorry, but thank you guys for your patience. I hope you enjoyed this part of it, and hopefully you can listen to both of them together so it makes a little bit more sense. But right now with timing and just recording and everything, it just makes more sense for us to do 2 parts on this one. So you guys know the drill. Until next time, know where you are, know your phone number, and tell us exactly what happened.